And it is a legal Wednesday, speaking of fog. That means it's time to chat with Jeremy Rosenthal, attorney at law. He joins us once again on the Wake Up Call. Good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning.
Oh, just fine.
Thumbs up.
Doing dandy. How are you?
I'm not as happy as the fighting Texas Aggies who beat Auburn last night, but as we discussed off the air, don't worry about the Aggies. They're going to choke out. They always do. It's going to be Ducks Red Raiders in the Sweet 16. You heard it here first.
All right. Very good.
I was looking at thinking about like the coolest months out of the year, and we're both sports fanatics, you and I, Jeremy. March has got to be one of the best months.
I love me some March, man. I love the conference tournaments. I love the big dance. I love this time where you're kind of leading up to it. It sucks when your team is no good. But that's, in West Texas, my Red Raiders, they love them some hoops. I went to law school at SMU because I really like debt. And even those guys are in the ACC now. So they're even doing pretty good. And I can actually take my kid to an SMU game. So that's a lot of fun. No, I'm with you guys. I love some college hoops. A lot of drama.
All right. Well, let's talk about drama in the courtrooms.
Mm-hmm.
So folks that have been paying attention know that, if they've been paying attention, that Mexico is actually taking legal action, or trying to, against U.S. lawmakers, and the justices are going to be hearing arguments in a $10 billion with a B dollar lawsuit by the Mexican government that it claims that gun makers are complicit in supplying drug cartels by, I guess, the simple fact that they make guns. So why don't you get into the weeds?
All right, the weeds. Okay, so let's start here. In Mexico, you can buy firearms from one store, one place, and I'm not certain where that is, but they're obviously not in the volume business down there. And the Mexican government claims 70% of the weapons from the cartel are from American manufacturers and are smuggled into Mexico, right? This is obviously pushback. I mean, there's a lot of rhetoric in the United States. I mean, we have been very focused in this country on illegal immigration, on the crime that comes here from illegal immigration and all of these things. Maybe this is political pushback or payback. I don't know. But the theory is this. The theory is United States of America, you are not policing your weapons industry, and those weapons are ending up in the hands of the cartel. The ATF is not doing it, as the argument goes from the Mexican government, and so we're taking this into our own hands, and we're going to do so by suing your companies in your own courts. So there is a federal law which protects firearm manufacturers from lawsuits, and think of it like this. The law is essentially designed to be like, if you were Anheuser-Busch, it would sever you from liability from a drunk driving accident where somebody is killed, right? Because look, we make alcohol, we make these things, but we're not responsible for its use. And we know that people can abuse it out there. Just like the gun manufacturers know that there are in all likelihood bad dealers that are out there. And the Mexican government is pointing to a handful of sales points. Most of them are in Arizona. Some of them are in Texas that say, look, you guys look the other way when a straw buyer comes in, right? When somebody comes in who's affiliated with the cartel, gives you a phony name, you sell them weapons, and they wind up in Mexico. And U.S. manufacturers, you make these weapons easy to have the serial numbers taken off of. You don't make it difficult. You make it difficult for us to track these weapons. And you are making these weapons cartel friendly. So that's the Mexican government's argument. The problem is that the statute that protects the gun manufacturers does not allow necessarily for a suit like that. You can get sued if you're a gun manufacturer if you make a weapon that's faulty, that malfunctions and somebody gets hurt. You can get sued if you have an advertising campaign that's like, you guys remember Joe Camel selling cigarettes to your kids, right? Um, you can get sued for that type of thing, or you can get sued if you are knowingly. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, now that the early versions of Mickey Mouse are in the public domain, you need to have an early Mickey, Steamboat Willie, standing out there on the deck of his boat with a rifle. That would be
his AR.
Yeah, with his AR. You could have maybe Colt do that with their AR. I think that would be. Ha ha! Hi, Minnie.
There's nothing more American.
Yeah, there's nothing. Yeah, okay. I'm just putting that aside. I'll be writing a letter soon, trying to cash in on that cool gun money. Anyway, go on as you were saying.
There you go. Yeah. Well, so the Mexican, so the exception that the Mexican government's going for is that the gun manufacturers are on the hook if they know that there's a crime being committed and they partake in it. And the theory goes that, look, when you guys sell weapons to these certain bad dealers, or that it's getting in there through some of these the sales show loop, that's how these weapons are getting down here. So therefore, you are complicit in the crime. That's what we're fighting about in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's going to toss this. They're going to tell Mexico that this doesn't work under this statute. But there is a much bigger problem here, obviously, and there's a ton of finger pointing, right? The manufacturers are pointing at Mexico, saying, hey, just because you guys can't police your own country doesn't make this my fault. They're pointing back and saying, well, if your ATF was funded well enough, we wouldn't have to deal with this headache ourselves. So there's a lot of blame going back and forth for this.
Well, since so much of the onus of this case rests on the ATF not doing its job, why are they suing the gun companies? They have no control over the ATF. That would be, the federal government not doing its job. So why
a great point, yeah.
I mean, that's negligence, I mean, in my way of thinking, if I were arguing it on their behalf, there would be a different defendant here.
And I think what you've identified here is the reality that this is a political problem, and that Mexico is almost certainly that $10 billion would be great. I'm sure they want that. But I think also what Mexico wants as much as anything is attention to this problem. And now I don't know that if they sued the U.S. government directly, or what do you do? Do you maybe you impose a tariff? I don't know. I've read that that's a thing these days. So I don't know how you address that. Again, that's a little above my pay grade. But yeah,
I'm kind of curious. Did Operation Gunwalker come up?
I've not heard of Operation Gunwalker. That's educate me. I'm not. I listened.
It was essentially where the U.S. government was purposely selling guns to the cartels. I was just wondering, and then supposedly hypothetically trying to track them.
I did not watch the State of the Union last night because instead I watched the oral arguments at the Supreme Court on this issue because I'm a nerd like that.
Yeah.
That part did not come up. But yes, look, we got the receipts for the weapons ourselves. Why do you have to go to the manufacturers? Just come to Congress. We got the receipt right here. A great point. A great point that you make.
Okay. They kept saying they mentioned apparently several gun dealers in a couple of different states that I guess what they'd identified as questionable dealers. If somebody is filling out the federal forms and, were they saying that these gun dealers weren't doing the federal paperwork that's supposed to be filled out that would have identified them?
Well, okay, there's a couple issues here. You have the gun sale loophole, or the gun show loophole, which requires obviously far looser background checks, if any. I'm not certain. But I think what they're saying is that these cartels would send straw men into the store. In other words, they would send people in with fake identification, fake backgrounds, enough to pass the smell test for the store. Maybe the store is probably covering its rear, you would think, and doing all the paperwork, but probably kind of knowing on a certain level, like this one doesn't smell right, but whatever, we'll sell it to him anyway. And then that guy goes and flips it to the cartel. So I think that's what's going on.
Yeah, but anytime anybody buys a gun at a gun store, unless the gun store is not doing the background checks, they have all that information that they're required by law to have on hand and have it filed for the life of the gun store. And those forms, before they can turn that gun over to anybody, has to go through a background check system. So this is where I'm confused as to, how they're being able to blame the gun stores. If the gun store is not having the paperwork filled out, then yeah, they would be on the hook. But it seems, again, this to me goes back to the ATF more than even the gun store. Even if they do look at the person and say, yeah, this seems kind of dodgy, but they pass their background check, so okay. Because it's not the gun store's responsibility to look at somebody and identify them as dodgy and just say, I'm not. No. You can't fill out the forms. You can't do whatever. It's up to the person on the receiving end of those forms to make the decision whether they're on the up and up or not. And it even says on the forms, do you plan on selling this to somebody else? Do you plan on buying this and giving it to somebody else, which is illegal? It asks a variety of questions along those particular lines. So it's like, it seems to me that this suit, if they had a problem with those gun stores, they should have sued them, that the ATF should have been sued, and that, the gun manufacturers, to me, come way down on the list of people that should have been taken to court over it, where you would have had a legit argument.
Yeah.
I will say that the individual gun stores are part of the lawsuit. The ATF, I do not believe is, because that would, once you start suing like a government, that triggers treaties and all that stuff. But I think you're correct, because I do think that it literally comes down to a manpower issue, right? Can we audit all of these stores? Can we go and look at their paper history? And if we know we're not going to get audited, then, we know that somebody's going to come in here, give us enough phony baloney to give us a little bit of paper on it. If it doesn't pass the smell test, I mean, these straw buyers know, they know. Are you going to sell to somebody else? Well, let me think about that. I'm going to say no, right? I mean, we know that part's going to happen. But really, this is a very layered issue, I don't think the lawsuit's going to solve it. And I think the lawsuit's going to get chucked. But from that standpoint, I think we'll see what the Supreme Court does, obviously. But going back just a little bit, a lot of layers to this issue, and no real clear solutions from anybody.
Interesting. As a side note, in case people didn't know, the .38 Super has been known for a long time to be the preferred pistol caliber for cartel members and stuff. And the reason for that is because other calibers are banned down in Mexico. I discovered that not all that long ago. So there you get a little piece of trivia for you. Next time you're out at a bar doing trivia night, now you know why the cartels prefer .38 Super pistols.
You've got a lot of knowledge about all this. I'm just saying. You know a lot about this.
Well, Dave.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
Just throwing it out there.
Okay.
Just throwing it out. Just saying.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. That's nice of you, Jeremy. I know you're sucking up. You just want another T-shirt or a hoodie. I get it. I get it. It's okay. It's okay, man. I don't blame you. Go for it. You've obviously spotted a couple of easy marks, and I respect you for that. All right, Jeremy, we appreciate you joining us on the Wake Up Call this morning. Have a great rest of your day, man. Looking forward to our next chat.
Go Tech.
All right, take care.